Ladies, whoa, microphone, you need to get closer. Oh boy, off to a good start, friends. Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to Step Back Tonight, the evening show that I do, where I hang out with y'all as me, a person, a real streamer who makes real money doing streaming. Hi, I'm Tristan Johnson, the host of YouTube channels Step Back History, and Tristan won't shut up. This is Romeo. He decided he wanted to hang with me tonight. We'll see how long he lasts. Oh, spoke too soon. I stream 3 days a week for everybody who wants to know my streaming schedule. All of this is Eastern time. I stream the Monday Discourse, where we talk about discourse and internet culture and shit like that with Mia Mulder. That's from 12 till 2 on Mondays. Tuesday nights is what you're watching right now. It's Step Back Tonight. It's just me and you guys and chillin'. Goes from 7 till 9. And then I've got The Reactor, which is a show I do on Friday afternoons from 12 till 2, where people send me links and I respond to them. And yeah, I go by he, him pronouns, and you can find my work at stepbackhistory.com or tristanwon'tshutup.com. Cheers to that. If you're on Twitch right now and you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch Prime subscription every month. And if you don't use it, you don't get that money back. Jeff Bezos just gets to keep it to have sex with. So, if you want to prevent Jeff Bezos from having sex with your money, you should use your Twitch Prime subscription every month on someone who is an independent Twitch creator, so that you can keep them, keep them employed. And if you choose Step Back, I'll be very grateful. But you don't have to. But please use it on someone. My latest, if you want to hear what's going on in the world of, what's going on in the channel right now, my latest video on Step Back is called When White Supremacists Declared War on America, and it's about white supremacists and how the white power movement structured itself. And I gotta say, it's 6 days old and has 20,000 views, so people seem to be liking it. That's real fun. Other things I'm working. I recently made. I made a video about Amazon for Tristan Won't Shut Up, and it's also doing pretty well. Having a good time with that. Yeah, it's doing all right. You literally just finished my Amazon video? That's awesome. When did you purge the reactor links? Shortly after the Friday stream, I did it. I typically don't look at, when I'm doing the reactor fills up with so many video links that I just empty it out to keep stuff fresh month over month. And yeah, I purge it. And yeah, so after the last stream of the month on Friday, I just delete the text file that I have that has it. And then I typically refill it I fill the text file every Friday morning before the streams before the stream gets going. Usually it's one of the first things I do in the morning, so that's a thing. Anyways, come for next content, new content. Right now I'm sort of in a limbo phase with stuff. I am working on a step back video on the kind of communist backlash, or what about Japan, and about how Japanese communists resisted U.S. imperialism after World War II. That's going to be the topic of the video. That should be coming out. The December 14th is the official day that I have for it, but we'll see if I can get it done even sooner. Probably not. Probably be December 14th. And yeah, so that video is going to be, I'm working on that. And then my next Tristan Won't Shut Up video I'm working on is about index funds and investment, and how markets are less good than planned economies at investing and in innovating, and how things like index funds show that planning and non-competitive economics is a much better method of doing things than kind of the cutthroat market. If Future could say whether you're done or not during the stream. Last week I waited like 2 days to submit anything because I was worried you're not done yet. Alright. I mean, I'm like, it's like the bureaucracy of the fucking 2 hours where I just like yell at YouTube videos. I dare to ask someone just finding out about you. Do you happen to work at edit with the Canadian Maxi? Love to see first meet you on the live stream, fellow. Yeah. Do I happen to work? I don't know what A/O edit, but I'm Maxi's video editor. What's it called? Basically I edit her videos. I actually just finished one, so you should be getting one soon. Hey, whoa, wait. Matt gifted 5 tier 1 subscriptions. Holy crap, Matt, you're a baller. Thank you so much. Thank you for gifting people some subscriptions. What happened there? Oh, this is just all the subscriptions coming through, huh? Holy crap. That's awesome. Happy belated. Aw, thank you. Cheers. Saw that positive leftist news just news. Great. Love the baby turtles. Yeah, that was a fun thing. So one of the maybe I'm spoiling Mexi's video, but one of the stories that is covered in positive leftist news this month has to do with baby sea turtles. So I got to go and look through footage of baby sea turtles as part of my work. So that was fun. Thank you so much for all the work with Mexi. Yeah, I think I've been editing her videos for... I've been editing her videos now for over a year, I think. Hey, Greg, 57 years. Thank you for following. Welcome to York Gang. I showed your video about the Paris Commune to several leftist American streamers. That's pretty cool. That's awesome. I am so cool. Oh, okay. Well, I feel like if I ended up being accidentally cool, it would ruin my reputation as a giant dork. If you ever think I'm cool, I just want to point you to this, which is my bookshelf full of Dungeons and Dragons source books. So if there's all that, the Dungeons and Dragons source books, and also, I don't think you probably can't see it, but I'll also draw your attention to, where is it? It's somewhere on there. My TARDIS. There's a TARDIS that you can't see, sadly. And somewhere in there is the helmet of the World of Warcraft Lich King. So, like, cool your jets on saying I'm cool. Are you excited for Tasha's? Tasha's came out several weeks ago, and I have been poking around in it, and it's very fun. What's great about it is that I have had several players in my games who used it. They had it, and what's it called? or they had used some of the subclasses in that book, and they came out. They finally came out and they're official. And so, like, I've had one of my. I think the one that's making a lot of people upset is that there's a druid that's based on fire, and they lost Fireball, and all of the druids that were playing these like wildfire spirit druids are really mad. But it's been pretty fun. One day come back and be on top. Well, thank you. D&D is cool now. Hip stoners are even playing it. Well, there you go. Long time YouTube sub, former patron, still needs some Tristan. That's awesome, Greg. I love that there's so many of you here. It's so crazy. Thank you. Babysitter. Okay. Me not celebrating the diversity smothered right-wing cabinet choices has caused me interpersonal strife. Anyone else? Oh, it's what's it called? Biden is pushing the neoliberal woke thing pretty hard. It's like impressive. Like, they figured out that this gets a certain percentage of people to shut up about not having healthcare, so they're doing it real hard. And yeah, it's perfect, because then you can say, hey, I don't like that Neera Tanden, who's one of the most openly progressive Democrat people ever, is and then they're just going to be like, oh, what are you, some kind of racist? And so, yeah, like, what's it called? I'm watching on Democracy Now!, and it's like this whole, like, Democracy Now! Has to cover this, and they're just like, Neera Tanden will be the first, I don't even remember what her job is, but, like, she's going to be the first South Asian woman to have this position. She has, but she's being criticized for the fact that she's, like, linked to all of these, like, oil corporations, and, what's it called? And, was one of the most anti-Sanders, media figures, and it's like, oh, okay. This is gonna be a real fun 4 years. I just remembered when in 2016 when a lot of my friends called me a misogynist because I liked Bernie Sanders, and I feel like I'm just going to be enjoying that kind of a feeling for the next 4 years. It's going to be great. It's going to be real fun. I'm pumped to oh man, it's gonna be such a thing. Anyways, that's I haven't even finished my shtick yet. So here's how stuff works. If you have a question that I can answer in like one sentence, feel free to post it in the chat. I'll be trying to read and keep up the chat. I'm not going to guarantee that I'm going to read a question or something like that. I have to be very explicit about all these things because now there's a lot of rules. So I'm not going to guaranteed read any questions. But if you want to add a question that won't necessarily be answered in this stream, but will be answered at some stream in the future, then I have, or some stream eventually, or basically it's you submitting questions just to like kind of fuel the conversational show that I do. And if you want to submit something to that, I have a link. I'm going to put it in the chat right this minute, right this second. You should get it. And yeah. The flick of fluff on your right t-shirt is triggering my OCD. The fluff on my t-shirt? What is the fluff on my t-shirt? Is it this? I don't even know what that is. It can't possibly be. I don't know. It's mostly cat hair because I'm wearing a black shirt and I own 2 cats. Alright. I don't like D&D. I find it repetitive, but I won't say it's not cool. Okay. Yeah. So are you watching the expose CNN tapes? I haven't seen those. I don't even know what those are. Do you have a U.S. working class history events that you like to explain in a video? I'd love to do the Battle of Blair Mountain at some point. I said that I was going to make a video where I talk about American labor history for 30 minutes, and now I'm sort of beholden to that. But maybe I will, to make it something a little bit more, like, a little less of like a university lecture, I'll do something like the Battle of Blair Mountain, which was where like a strike literally turned into like a shooting match between like Pinkerton scabs and or Pinkerton's scabs and striking workers. So, where'd you get that Medicare for All, Jobs for All, Just for All T-shirt you wore last night? That's like the AOC shirt where you had to buy it through Americans. Yeah, it is. I bought that shirt as a. That was a Bernie Sanders 2020 campaign shirt, and I bought it. Same thing. And last Christmas, when you could still go to America, I went and picked up that shirt. So that's a thing. And this is my feminist frequency shirt, which is fun. And oh yeah, last thing I want to cover on the kind of opening shtick is if this is your first time here, if this is your first time watching a stream by me, first of all, welcome. Thank you for showing up to my weird show thing. And if you want, if we have a very vibrant community here, as you can see from the chat, just going like all quick like. So if you want to. Please make yourself known in the chat and say hello, because some pretty cool people to hang out with. Thoughts on French security bill? I don't know anything about what's going on in France right now. Lessons from Blair Mountain. Can't be a real redneck if you're licking boots. Yeah. It's true. Just watched your video on Emma Goldman and Nestor Mock, and I was wondering if you ever considered doing a series profiling famous anarchists throughout history. Seems like I already have. I did. There's one point where I was planning on making a Peter Kropotkin video, which I still might do. I don't know how far I want to go down that route, because like if I were to like here's this like I still want to be somewhat accessible, and I definitely will like do more of them. I've obviously covered a lot of anarchist content throughout history. Throughout the history of the Step Back, so I'll probably come back to it. I've covered like a lot of Americans and then Nestor Macknow and such, but there's the anarchist who killed the president. That's another video that I did that sort of profiled an anarchist, a famous anarchist, maybe an infamous anarchist. And I probably should do Kropotkin. Something makes me want to read Murray Bookchin and find out more about what his whole deal is. So we'll see. At the moment, though, the main thing is I'm going to be trying to make this Japan video to see if that's a thing that the audience wants to watch. And if they don't, even if they don't, I'll probably be going back to making videos on the white power movement, because I still have a lot to juice from that. And so that's probably like the main focus of what I'm working on right now. Hands up if it snowed for anybody. Yo, it's been snowing for several days. I don't speak Portuguese, unfortunately. Alright. Japan is the anti-Iraq. Yeah, there's a whole book about it called Cultures of War, which I read for my comps, which is all about how, like, George Bush Jr.'s, George Bush Jr.'s attempt to rebuild Iraq was a disaster because it was based on, like, neoliberal ideas about how economics works, while Japan's reconstruction was very successful because it was based on, like, New Deal stuff. It's sort of a thing. Do read Bookchin. I am interested in, like, democratic municipalism or whatever it's called. I'm trying to remember what, Murray Bookchin's actual, like, theory's called, but it's something like that. Thoughts on Barr after his statement if he will get fired or resign? I haven't seen that, like, just happened while I was, like, eating dinner. So apparently, as far as I know, Bob Barr might have exchanged money for a presidential pardon, or tried to exchange money for a presidential pardon. Is that what I'm picking up? Is that the story? Oh, it, like, just fucking happened, so I don't really know. Greetings from Chile. Oh, wow, that's awesome. Hello, Victor. Or should I say Victor? Barr said there was no voter fraud, and then he had a pop-up MTG, or a pop-up meeting with Trump in the White House. Oh, there you go. That's a different story. Does Barr need a pardon? Oh, boy. Could have sworn you did a video on the Zapatistas or Chiapas at one point, but I can't find it. I have not done one. I have not done a Zapatistas or Chiapas video. I should. I do. If there's one thing I do love, it's Mexican culture, and the Zapatista movement is pretty cool. All right. What are people asking me about? Have you done anything on Iran vis-a-vis socialism? No, I have. The only video that I've done is the 110-year story of the Iranian Revolution, which is a video on the Iranian Revolution. I did that one probably back in like 2018 or something like that. Picked up your channel about a week ago and I'm impressed with the content. Keep it up. Well, thank you. Gosh, so many new friends. So many new people who enjoy the weird shit that I put on the internet. Alright, so let's take a look at what the next question we got. What the next thing we got up here is, suppose everyone who doesn't live in an isolated tribe. Tale of Two Rabbit. Hey! That might be a Mexico reference. Thank you for following. Welcome to our gang. Would you say the Arab-Persia division is capitalist and socialist lines? I could not even begin to speak to that, I'll be honest. Suppose everyone who doesn't live in an isolated tribe dropped dead. Do you think that decadence, that their descent, do you think their decadence would recreate capitalism when they recolonize the rest of the world? If no, what do you think their archaeologists would think when they find evidence of us having like build buildings or other structures that make no sense outside of the context of capitalism? What will they think like data centers were for if they have no concept of IP? That's a good question. So this is sort of like the is socialism a science or not? This is sort of like the immortal science of Marxism, Leninism type stuff that is pretty rough. I don't know how I feel about this. Obviously, we can't do a... Because, like, somebody who's, like, a very traditional Marxist-Leninist would say, yes, they would rediscover capitalism as they industrialized. That's just a necessity about how it is. But that's not necessarily true, I think. I think that it's a bit more complex than that. I think that instead of seeing, like, history as this, like, you know, deterministic view to leading towards communism eventually by the time you get enough industrialization... I would say that I'm more of a believer that, like, the way that our social structures work are more at the mercy of bigger trends and economic forces that we don't have control over than we'd like to think. And so, while it's, like, not necessarily true that they would be able to, that they would, like, you know, recreate capitalism, it seems like a thing that could happen, but it's not a necessary one, I think. It really depends upon their history. Like, I do think that capitalism... Because, like, there's a lot of... I think that capitalism is not a natural thing that was born out of industrialization. I think that it kind of needed, like, colonization and like, the feudal system before it to sort of make sense. That kind of stuff. But if they don't have ideas of IP... I mean, data centers are for more than just intellectual property protection. I think they'd be more confused about how we produced so much shit that we just didn't use. The overconsumption is, like, the huge problem. Moath93, thank you for saying hello. Hello. The GDC members' rhetoric against Iran. I don't know. Didn't capitalism end slavery? I mean, slavery still exists today, and I guess, yeah, they it definitely was responsible for replacing buying people with renting people. So I guess that's a thing. Could you figure out we were over consuming from archaeology? I don't know. Maybe. If anything, capitalism was developed to try and justify the slave trade. You'd get more what's it called? You'd get more juice by saying that liberalism was responsible for ending slavery. Not that I'd agree with it, but you would be more right than saying capitalism ended slavery. Capitalism fucking loves slavery. And besides, like, you can still, there are still like people who like get recruited in like small villages in India, and then they get taken to Dubai where their passport's taken away and they're basically forced to work for nothing. Like, there are still slaves today. I think Adam Smith said slavery is less efficient than the market. I'd have to guess citations needed on that one. Because, I mean, like, capitalism was invented in, like, the 1700s, and slavery kept going for quite a few decades after that. And, yeah, I don't necessarily see them as... Isn't it said that there are more slaves today than ever? I don't know about that one. I guess you could figure we were producing enough food to feed everyone, but you'd find evidence of famine. Yeah, there's an example. The relationship of... Hey! LO2Eng. Thank you for following. Welcome to York Gang. Thank you. Welcome aboard. Let's see. Prison. Oh, yeah, there's the whole, like, prison slavery thing. Prison labor in the U.S. alone exceeds the number of slaves in 1850. Well, there is that. Slavery, capitalism, such probably have to evolve into communism once we get AI. Anyways, will Trump be banned from Twitter when he leaves office? Something makes me think that he won't be, but that he might say something. I feel like he'll tweet something dumb after he's no longer protected, and that'll result in him getting banned. Or maybe, and it'll be like a whole story. It'll be like a big news story, and everyone will freak out about it. Or he might end up just... the thing I worry about is that, like, if Trump actually got banned on Twitter, I have a feeling that, like, there's a non-zero chance somebody would actually bomb Twitter's headquarters. I do see, like that's a big thing. Do you ever think you'll go back and finish your PhD to become Mr. Dr. Stepback? At this point, I don't think so. I know that, like, my mom really wants me to, and Kelly every once in a while tries to, like, float the idea that maybe I should finish it. But honestly, like, at this point, it would be, like, I would need to find a dissertation topic that I could dedicate so much of my time to. And, like, right now, I am already, like I am right now going full speed towards burnout land by doing, like, a little bit of freelancing and like, making my videos for my channels. Long term, like, a PhD requires a lot of work, and because of the way that, like, financing and stuff works, they're gonna push you to finish it in a very short amount of time because it does cost tuition, and they only fund you for a set period. So I would basically, at this point, would need to put my business that's already, you know, starting to, you know, get some momentum. I'd have to put it on hold for like 4 years so I can go and do an entire dissertation, which I would be doing just so that I can call myself a doctor. And then I would because it would not make me more employable or anything. She wants to tell her Midwest parents she married a doctor. No, it's just that Kelly's got a PhD, and like her parents wouldn't care if I had a PhD or not. Just that like they saw like what's it called? Sunk cost fallacy. Both my parents and Kelly, I think, are doing a sunk cost fallacy. They think that is because it was a thing I started. It was a thing I did for 3 years, and then I dropped out. And it's like you can't just not finish something when you start it, even though like all I would do is take another like 2 or 3 years to write a really big document that no one will read, so that I can get a title that no one cares about, and if anything will make me, if like Step Back like collapses tomorrow, it'll make me completely unemployable because I'm quote unquote overqualified for most jobs that would be available for me in this day and age, which would be like, I don't know, I can't even be an Uber driver because I don't even have a driver's license. I don't even know what kind of job I could do. How old would you be when you finished it? If I started now, I'd probably be like 36. All I'm saying is that a PhD isn't like cruise control to a gainful career anymore, but especially in history. And I think that I left for. I think that I what's it called? I think I dropped out for very good reasons. And I think that I... what about if I had stayed on? If I had stayed on, I probably would have been finishing... I was in my 3rd year when I dropped out. Sort of the end of my 3rd year, and that was at the beginning of 2018. So I would probably be graduating around now. Maybe next year. So I'd be 32 probably. 50% of PhDs or history PhDs don't find a job. I mean, if it's even that, be very like what's it called? Very few history PhDs actually become history professors anymore. So I would just be able to call myself a doctor, and I don't know if putting my business that I've sunk 5 years of my life into and have put in way more hours than I think is healthy, to then give that up for another 3 or 4 years so that I can go and write a dissertation, I feel like would not be conducive to a successful career. Or it would not be a good choice just so I can call myself a doctor. What do most PhDs end up doing then? They end up either becoming adjunct faculty, which is like they teach classes on a contract basis, which means that they work way more hours, they don't get to do any research, they get no sabbaticals, and they get paid way less. Or they go off and do other things. Like the people who I know who graduated from their PhDs with history have gone on to become, one of them works in a brew pub. Trying to think of some other ones who's graduated. No, so one got a job working for the Ontario government, just in like sort of like the civil service, but I don't think I think I only know of like maybe 1 or 2 that were very, very successful even when they were PhD students that went on to actually do something that approaches an actual career in history. I adjuncted for 2 years, and now I have a YouTube channel that pays me almost as much. I feel ya. Yeah. At this moment, at this moment, I make more money than if I was an adjunct professor who taught 1 course per semester. I would make less money than I'm making now with Step Back. So there's that. Apparently, also history PhDs can go to law school. I have heard about that. Any ideas for what you want to write your dissertation? I mean, when I was doing my dissertation, when I was doing my PhD, I was doing it on 9/11, and I was sort of it was more methodological. Like my interest was in trying to study like machine learning and big data, and trying to apply it to historical research. Specifically, I was interested in studying how the internet reacted in real time to the September 11th attacks. That was my idea. I bit off way more than I could chew because I didn't know any of that. Why not just go to law school right after university? Just because law school is very competitive, and if you have like a lot of, I think more like people I know who go to law school after they do a master's in history, maybe not a PhD actually, but I've seen of a lot of people who go to law school after doing their MAs. Yeah, any degree can go to law school. This is true. Just that like um, history is just a good. It's just a good subject. Like the kind of skills you learn in a history degree will set you up pretty well to try and take the LSATs and go to law school. You studied U.S. history only. My specializations were. I'm just not gonna listen to you 255. You're not in charge of the stream. Um, I studied. Did I study U.S. history only? Yes, kind of. My major focus areas were was the United States after 1870. That was like my subject focus, but I also had a focus in the history of communication and technology history, and a little bit of like the history of development of computer science and the internet. So that's kind of under the umbrella of both communication and technology history. So yeah, so like that stuff, which is still very America centric. I did take that. I did study that stuff. Is there any vids in your back catalog that you want to revisit and flesh out? Um, Depends. Like, there's some videos that are doing very well from my past that I definitely want to flesh out. Um, like, I did an old video a long, long time ago that's like my most successful video on sort of what the pre-Columbian world looked like before Europeans showed up, which I would love to flesh out into some more detailed stuff and more stories and stuff like that. But now that's not sort of the type of stuff that my audience is watching at the moment. So what's it called? The channel would have to change quite a bit for that to happen. That was kind of before BreadTube became a thing and before I got like gravitated into its orbit. And now my audience is mostly people who are into contemporary politics and socialism. And so I gotta like, I gotta make the stuff for what the people want. Yes, that's I didn't see it as passive aggressive. I saw it as aggressive aggressive. It was like you gave me a command. Was Homestead Act really that significant? I mean, the Homestead Act is basically what led a lot of poor people to get to basic. It like sent an influx of people to the West and moved them into indigenous territory at a pretty quick rate. Like if it wasn't for the fact that they just offered anybody cheap ass land, it would have been a much slower process. So they definitely like ratchet up the like explosion of like the invasion into indigenous territory through that. I sometimes wonder if a shitty alternate history is intended to make us feel better about living in this reality. I don't know. I th- I don't exactly know what the motivation of alternate history writers are, to be honest, except that they might be interesting thought experiments. And some of them want to just like let out their reaction, want to know what would happen if their reactionary hobby horse won the war or whatever. But yeah, I don't know why they always gravitate to alternate history scenarios that are worse than the one we have now. Probably because it makes for a better story. It's the only thing I can think of. Was the Homestead Act responsible for building the U.S. middle class? It's a bit too early for the U.S. middle class. The middle class was built over the fact that there was a period after World War II where the United States basically like sold white GIs a bunch of really cheap homes with like leases that were like what's it called, really shit, like really like cheap leases, and not to mention at the same time like unions were very strong, so it was really easy to get a job that paid a lot, and also didn't require education, and you could feed an entire family off of one income. And then on top of that, if you did go to get education, you could very easily just land yourself in an easy career job that would pay you a lot of money. That's how the middle class was built. The middle class was built because workers got money, and now they don't. Sleepy cat in the background. Yeah, Romeo's having a nap in the background there. Could George Washington become a military dictator if he wanted to? He kind of almost did. Um, he kind of, what's it called? He suppressed a popular uprising during the Articles of Confederation days. And then also, during his presidency, he put down the Whiskey Rebellion, which was basically a rebellion against the tyranny of the federal government. And there was talks during the writing of the Constitution to make George Washington like King of America, which would basically have made him a dictator. I know this sounds weird, but you look almost exactly like me. Well then, well done. That was good old Alexander Hamilton, who basically wanted to bring the monarchy back. Very relaxing music today. What event in history most fits the idea of a turning point where history would have taken a vastly different route? Many so-called turning points like Gettysburg and Stalingrad were more just points where it was clear the losing side was going to lose the war. Ooh. Ooh, this is a juicy one. The shine on Trudeau has finally started wearing off. How long before Biden ended up the same way? What happened? I don't know what happened with Trudeau today. I've been writing a script for the Cold War about President Eisenhower for a good chunk of the day today, and reading about Japan. That's what my day's been. This turning point thing is very interesting, though. So what's like a historical event where it wasn't just like a sign that a thing that was already happening would happen, but like an actual event where, because this event happened, everything went sideways. I mean, the biggest one that comes to mind, the burning of Library of Alexandria, that might be a good one. The destruction of the destruction of Baghdad, of the city of Baghdad, the sacking of Baghdad in 14 something or 13 something by Mongol invaders. I always think that the assassination of Franz Ferdinand is like that kind of small snapshot of like an event that almost if you were to look at it, it looked like it was a failed assassination attempt that miraculously turned into a successful assassination attempt that sort of set off a chain reaction, blowing up the entire world. So for like a small one, that would probably be a good one. Sulla pardoning Caesar. Oh yeah. The accidental invention of gunpowder? Maybe. Gunpowder's been invented several times, though. Like what's it called? It was invented independently in at least two locations. It's a good question though, Orange Man, who I don't think is here tonight. If the Black Army was able to avoid Trotsky, that'd be interesting. Have you read Guns, Germs, and Steel? What do you think of it? I have read Guns, Germs, and Steel, and it's okay. No, it's he. I've had this conversation before, and I think that Jared Diamond is like many other carpetbaggers who come from STEM fields and walk into science or walk into history and think that they can make general laws of history given the remarkably small sample sizes that come with surviving historical evidence and make grand sweeping assumptions about how the world works. The other one that comes to mind is like the Cleometrics guy. I can't remember what his name is. He's what's it called? He's an ornithologist. He studies birds. But yeah, it'd be like if what's it called? Jared Diamond writing Guns, Germs, and Steel is if I wrote a book about hey, Sky Solo, thank you for following, welcome to Working. If I wrote a book about birds and said that basically there's no such thing as birds, they like, what's it called? They're, because I'm a historian, I don't think that we should be able to classify birds as different species. So I'm thinking that we just need to understand every single bird as its own individual thing, because there are too many small differences. And like, what's it called? And like I would know what I was doing. I would be wrong, but that's because I'm a historian trying to do ornithology. I don't know. Jared Diamond just doesn't give good deference to like. He doesn't give deference to the conversations happening in the historical field, and by doing so, he makes big assumptions and also determines a lot of things that have cultural basis, and just says, no, it's just geology, it's just geography. You know, there's nothing about Christianity. There's nothing about the conquest mindset that comes in that religion. There's nothing about like about colonization, like the colonial mindset. None of that matters. None of that. No, it's just because Europeans had cows. That's why they did that. Don't like think about all the other people. Like don't think about other countries that did not colonize the world, who had the same level of technology. That doesn't matter. That's whatever. Because, yeah. Aren't there whole books debunking Guns, Germs, and Steel? Yeah, historians fucking hate Guns, Germs, and Steel. Chinese aliens weren't conquerors? I didn't say that, but there was definitely, like, not the same type of colonial system. Like, the Chinese didn't conquer the entire planet like Europeans did. Because they didn't have a culture that was focused on forcing people to become, what's it called? Whatever their religion is. Taoist or Confucianist or whatever. Guns and Germs understand, but why do historians hate steel? Oh, boy. Do I watch other creators like Folding Ideas Video, Flat Earth, and QAnon? Yeah, I watch all those guys. What history theories do I follow? I mean, I have a fairly... I definitely think that historical materialism teaches a lot about how to understand the past, which is sort of like a Marxist analysis of the past, to understand things through economic trends and forces rather than the acts of lone individuals. China did try to colonize Vietnam. Sure. The thing is, like, there wasn't they didn't go to Vietnam and say, oh look, these are what we like to call new Vietnamese. Let's like fucking kill all of them in an attempt to get gold. Like it was just not saying that it was good. I'm saying that it's qualitatively different and is not exactly what we would call colonization in the same sense. To the point where you have to kind of realize that that there were cultural factors that led to colonization, and not just the fact that that Europeans just had a long latitude instead of they had beasts of burden, and that's why they decided it was because they had horses that Christopher Columbus massacred the Taino people, so that they were thought to be eradicated until less than 50 years ago. It's just like that. There are more factors than just these geographical factors. There's a lot. There's more going on. Taiwan was a colony slash imperial holding as the native Taiwanese people are related to Polynesians. Makes sense. I think you guys aren't quite understanding the distinction I'm making, but that's fine. I'm sorry that I stepped on your favorite book, but there's a difference between having what's it called? Turning Taiwan into like a tributary state, or turning Vietnam into a tributary state, which that happened all the time, and literally destroying 90% plus of a population in a region so that you can start setting up shop and taking over and putting people there. And also, it really downplays the other thing too is that it's like, oh well, like the Native American people were inevitably going to be technologically behind. When if you look at if you decide to not look at the history of technology, like it's the what's it called, like it's the civilization tech tree, and you actually look at the innovations that indigenous people did have for their adaptation to their environment. They lived way more sustainably. They were way healthier and had a longer lifespan than the Europeans who arrived. At the same time, they had a much more varied diet, and they had a form of agriculture while they didn't have straight up agriculture like you would think, they had sophisticated geoengineering programs that genetically engineered an entire species called corn, and on top of that, they had sophisticated they basically reshaped the natural landscape of the continent in order to serve their needs. It's to think that is not comparable in technology terms to Europeans just because they had log houses and guns is a little of a weird thing to think of, because I guess they were less technologically advanced if you look at if you look at it from how close they approximated European ideas of technological advancement. But ancient China and Rome have had colonies and forced assimilation. Okay, we're really not breaking through here, huh? Okay. Muslims were also vicious invaders too. Sure. They definitely did do a lot of conquest. I don't know. Vicious is a little bit of a moralizing term. I don't know if they were any more or less vicious than Europeans were. Actually, less so, because Muslims didn't force people to convert. What's it called? The Christians were the only ones that were interested in converting people. What's it called? You look at the Islamic Empire in the 9th century, and there's not a whole lot of Muslims in it. Like, you look at like, what's it called? You get like there is a white racist attempt to say that Muslims were evil barbarians who were conquering and destroying, but by doing so, they brought like the expansion of the Islamic Empire into formerly Roman territory, created a cultural and linguistic and religious exchange that forever changed the nature of the things we know and led to one of the greatest cultural and scientific revolutions in human history. Because in the library of Baghdad, you had like Nestorian Christians, Eastern Orthodox Christians, Muslims, and Zoroastrians working together on different problems. You had Syrian Christians basically inventing the entire field of medicine because they weren't having their books burned as heretical knowledge by Christians, and they were being copied and translated into Arabic, a common language that everyone could speak, and it was just like a whole thing. Tlaxcaltecas were right to side with the Spaniards against the Aztecs. I mean, the Aztecs were an empire. No one likes empires. The West were more violent than other cultures. I mean, I would say that the fact that the Western culture has a weird way of making very elaborate justifications for some of the worst atrocities in human history, like. There's nothing like inherent about like Westerners existing. My pet theory is that it has a lot to do with the Christian mentality, because Christianity is a religion that, unlike other religions, is imperial. It literally one of its literal commands in its holy text is to create new converts and to expand the religion. Like, you don't see Jewish missionaries, you don't see Buddhist missionaries, and that I think was a really useful ideological ally for constant conquest and expansion. Islam has that too, to a much smaller extent. Muslim missionaries are, first of all, very controversial in Islam, and they are much smaller in number than Muslim. Islam is the second largest religion on earth, and I think there are fewer Muslim missionaries than there are Mormon missionaries. You don't see Jewish missionaries because it's against our religion. Yes, and mass converting the world is not really what's it called? Mass converting the world is not really in the interest of any major religion except for the Christians. Is there really Buddhist missionaries? Who the hell are these people? The first Buddhist missionaries are called Dharmapanaks, and some see a missionary charge and symbolism behind the Buddhist wheel, which is said to travel all over the world, bringing Buddhism to it. The Emperor Ashoka was a significant early... Oh, well, there you go. Do modern jihadists count as missionaries? Not really. Most what's it called? Most what you would consider jihadists or whatever are what's it called? Far right reactionaries, and it's usually an anti by most of what you would consider in that group. Their most common targets are other Muslims. Buddhist missionaries are more of a thing historically. That makes more sense. Modern jihadists are mostly nationalistic against American imperialism. Well, you're not wrong on that front, but also they're not exactly like, just because they're against American imperialism doesn't mean that they're like, good folk. Sorry, I was a dick earlier. Don't worry about it. How do religions spread without missionaries? Typically through familial bonds and like people who voluntarily convert. Like, you have to think about like in many ways, religion is tied to, and this is like one of the things I think that a lot of Christian people who grow up in a Christian tradition don't get, because Christianity is about replacing all of the world's religions with Christians. That religion is very tied to identity. It's tied to like local nationality, local culture, and things like that. Like it's tied to a lot of organic stuff about the place you live, and religions, they grow and decline based on different factors, and so these things sort of organically change generation over generation. As an example. And then yeah, sometimes people didn't have like huge reasons. Like people did not have like metaphysical, spiritual reasons to convert, but they converted for like the sake of convenience. Like for example, I'm trying to think of a really good one, but like there like a lot of like the spread of Islam is linked to local leaders like converting to Islam so that they can like maintain their authority, or like to be relevant in the local courts. But they didn't give a shit, and they didn't follow it all that closely. And then it takes a few generations for it to really sink in. Would the world be better if we gave up all religions? Maybe, but I don't see that I don't see that happening in any way that isn't like brutal and full of bloodshed. So, and religion is important to a lot of people, and I don't really want to take that away from them. There a lot of people whose religion doesn't involve them spreading hate or anything like that. It's just like part of who they are. I was about to say, yeah, you've got some religions like the Sikhs, where their most holy spot is a fucking soup kitchen. Like, so sounds pretty nice to me. Can there be social pressure without outright preaching or force? Like if the king converts and you can't get a good government job without converting? Yeah, I mean, like historically that happened a lot. Alrighty. Should probably look at what are we doing? What do we got? Thoughts on Jewish Bundists. Well, if it's anything like the German American Bund, this is going to be a very interesting group to look into. Because it's like, are these Jewish Nazis? Is that what this is? That would be a weird thing to think of. Bundism was a Jewish secular socialist movement whose organizations manifest in the general Jewish labor ban in Lithuania, Poland, and Russia. The German Labor Bund was an important aspect of the social democratic movement in the Russian Empire until the 1917 revolution. Bundists opposed the October Revolution and ended up supporting it due to pogroms. Okay. This sounds nice. Sounds like anti-Bolshevik socialists. The anti-communist socialist Bundist movement continued to exist as a labor party in the independent Poland in the interwar period. Okay. I mean, as far as I can see here, so far it seems okay. It does translate to federation. Well, there you go. So, as from what little I saw, sounds fine to me. Anti-communist socialist. Yeah, I think what they meant by anti-communist socialist in that context, I think they're referring to like, kind of like left communism, because like this is where the political terminology of today and the political terminology of the past start to lead to weird things that don't make sense to our modern ears, like the fact that that Lenin was an anti-left communist, and he wrote an entire book about how left communists have infantile mental disorders because they don't realize they value things like freedom and equality, which is not about. This is about communism. This is about making a centralized state to kill the strikers and massacre anarchists. But like, there was in left communist spaces, which was a left-wing critique of like Soviet communism, and that very often would lead to people who are anti-communist who are leftists, because if you think about it, at the time, communism became synonymous with like Bolshevik Soviet communism, in which there are tons of left criticisms of Bolshevik communism that you can do, because it ended up becoming a totalitarian nightmare that oppressed labor and had stark inequalities between those who were in the metropole and those who were on the periphery. Yeah, so it's one of those things that that makes sense in the context of its time, but as there's no more Soviet Union, the term communist has sort of become a lot more of a. It's lost a lot of its traditional definition, or its definition for a lot of the 20th century, and so terms like anti-communist socialists would sound a little alien to some people's ears. Aren't authoritarian leftists called tankies? I mean, yeah, but that's kind of a derisive term that's used against them. That's not a term they would use for themselves. Did Lenin ever argue that it'd be okay to have those things in the future when all the opposition is gone? Yeah, that was sort of the idea, is that to bring about communism, you need to defeat the capitalists. And so we're going to have no freedom until the state can defeat capitalism, and then the state will then devour itself and will voluntarily give up power, because that's a thing that states do. What you said about Mormons on Monday, they threatened judges, sustained themselves through banditry, and tried to set up Joseph Smith as a dictator several times. Was it really that people didn't like them because they were the wrong kind of Christian? It really depends upon who it was and where they were. They definitely went hardcore at some places, but they didn't, there are some places where they just got fucking run out of town for doing their own thing. There was some serious anti-Mormon shit that went down in that period as well. Favorite Clash song? Do I know a Clash song? They're a popular band, so I should, right? I'm going to say... Oh, yeah, Rock the Casbah, Should I Stay or Should I Go? There's a bunch of songs that I have heard, but I didn't know who they were by. Should I Stay or Should I Go is a pretty good song, though. I'll go with that. It's probably a not inspirational answer, though. Thoughts on Nasser and the idea of pan-Arabism? It was a cool idea at the time. It was sort of an anti-colonial movement. I like that. Obviously didn't work out in the long term, but there you go. How would you describe the beginning of the 2020s era in Western politics? Oh boy. So wrong to make your kids say I love you to their relatives? I mean, I don't like to coerce children into doing anything like that. But also, it's also, not that I would compel kids to do something like say I love you to your relatives, but I would mention to a child that, that people can't read your mind, and sometimes people need to hear what you feel about them, even if you should know. You know? Like, sometimes people just want to hear that you like them or that you love them. And while you don't have to, sometimes it's nice. What do you think about the term left unity? I'm fine with it. I think that it's a useful thing in a context-by-context basis. I don't like really making excuses for people who commit genocide or people who deny genocide, but you know, we're not exactly arguing from a position of power now, are we? Muslim colonists on Mars are keeping their women in Porta. If we were actually colonizing another planet, should we make renouncing social practices like that be conditional for them being allowed to go? I mean, I don't like being in any authority to tell people whether or not they can go to things. I don't exactly know, like, because you see, the thing is, like, you begin with that thought, thinking that's a good idea. We're just not going to allow any horrible practices like, making women wear clothing that Westerners think is oppressive. But then, like, that just translates into saying, hey, no Muslims allowed, or something. Like, it never really, like, comes out the way you want it to be, you know? When does it become obvious that an AI is going to destroy the labor market? How will non-leftist politicians justify not abolishing capitalism? Like, what would Joe Biden say? Haven't I already answered this question in the past? When it does become obvious that AI is going to destroy the labor market, how will non-leftist politicians justify not abolishing capitalism? I mean, they do it right now. They'll be like, oh, you just need to learn how to code. That's the trick. Just need to teach them how to code. It's about coding. And, like, if you learn how to code, then if you don't get a job because you didn't learn how to code, it's your own fault. You're the bad. Yeah, half of people are unemployed because there's only, like, 16 coding jobs and we have coding AIs. But then we'll find another task that you should be learning in order to fix the world. Like, they'll always find some way to blame you for not being marketable enough. That's sort of the go-to liberal answer when capitalism fails people. Because we value people by... we value human life. Am I not post questions in chat if they're already in the doc? It's just that I feel like I'll end up repeating myself. Yeah, I lost my train of thought, so I guess I'll move on. But like, we value human life based on its ability to make other people money, which I think is not good. And that'll continue to be how they approach it. Look at all the shit we've done during the pandemic. Look how we've, like, valued human life based on its ability to make people money, and it's resulted in, like, the pandemic killing tons of people to serve the what's it called? To make the almighty line go up. Number must go up, everybody. Look at how the U.S. is, like, almost at 200,000 cases a day because they couldn't tolerate the idea of going into a recession in order to save human lives. What about the economy, you know? What was the best thing that happened this year for the working class? I mean... But on what basis do we value the lives of the people making money? I don't understand. Like everybody's valued on their what's it called? Their capacity to make other people money. That's sort of our world. The radicalization could be a thing. I mean, not in America. In some countries, like Spain, use the pandemic as an excuse to add universal basic income. Um, and Switzerland recently had Switzerland recently used the pandemic as an excuse to change its minimum wage laws. Here, I'm going to change the thing so you can get the cat all the time. Is the current Republican Party still the party of Lincoln? I mean, no. Lincoln would have had no fucking clue what was going on today. The what's it called? The Republican Party today is very much the party of Reagan. Reagan fundamentally transformed the Republican Party into the thing it is today, and I feel like what semblance there is of what a mid 19th century president could even comprehend about the way politics works today is Lincoln's entire mindset is completely alien to this world. But I would say that so is Reagan's, but they still use it. They still cling to it like a fucking barnacle. India has a growing anarchist movement? That's fucking badass. Historically speaking, do you think slavery was necessary? No. No, 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 no. No, it's an unspeakable, cruel horror that we imposed on people. No. Oh, God. Imagine Franklin finding out about Tinder. The thing is that Franklin would be more of a he'd be more of a Match.com kind of guy because Franklin was into seducing old ladies. Tinder, he's like, none of these people are over 60. They're too young for me. Oh, Benjamin Franklin. My turn-ons are fart jokes and dissecting corpses. Are teachers part of the working class or professional class? I already answered that question in the previous stream. But we said is that the professional class and the working class aren't necessarily different things. Did you hear about the massive strikes in India where 200 million people are striking? No. I get really upset that I don't learn about what's going on in India because I've been wanting to keep my eye on India because I'm really, really nervous about what Narendra Modi is going to do to India's Muslim population. But I do know that there was something going on, but I don't know exactly what it was or what it was about. Is it true that Franklin would have been the first president, but he was too old? I actually don't know that. Franklin was the person who at the when they were writing the Constitution, he was the one who wanted a council of 5 presidents. That is a pretty based idea, honestly. Why we have this relic from the Middle Ages that every country has to have a single person that represents that country? How much of a long-term threat is transphobia in the UK? Do you think it will die out or grow stronger? I mean, nothing seems to be checking it. It seems to be getting worse, not better. So, Ben Franklin's things are inventing bifocals, having sex with old ladies, and wanting a council of presidents. I mean, he was an 18th century man, so he still fucking sucked, but those are some fun things. What are your thoughts about democratic confederalism as developed by Kurdish theorist Abdullah Öcalan and as implemented in Rojava in northeastern Syria? I This is a thing that I don't know anything about, but I want to know a lot about. I have it as on my list of things to read someday. I have a lot like there isn't really like I don't think Öcalan's ever written a book, but I have like a collection of like the ideas of democratic confederalism, and I have that. It's like translated from Kurdish, and I have it on my computer. I'm just like it's on my list of things to read someday. Unfortunately, I do things like work on Tuesday nights, so like I don't really like my free time is very limited these days. But I have it on a list that I will get to at some point. Um, oh, this one you wanted Mia to be around, so I'll hang on to this one for Mia. This one's also for Mia. Here's one not for Mia. Do you think that they're giving Biden the same briefings Trump is getting, or do you think they're actually giving him ones that are full length? Typically, the way that that works is that if it's anything, if it's like the you're talking about the president's national security daily briefing, so those are an entire team is tasked with putting those together, and typically, like um, when they give the president or president-elect the daily national security briefing, it is very much up to every individual president, um, like what kind of things that they prefer and the way that they like to get their information and how they like to take care of things. And the entire, like, that you basically have an entire committee of people whose job every single day is to collect information and get it to you in the way that you like. So my guess is that they probably, the people who do it right now probably called up, because I imagine he got these back when he was vice president too. So I imagine they called up whoever was in charge of Joe Biden's national security briefings back when he was vice president, and they asked him how he likes it, and they probably worked it out from there. I do know that, or the rumor is that Trump, they kept making them shorter and shorter, and Trump still wouldn't read them, and so they basically just stopped. They started giving them to, I think, Mike Pence instead, because they just knew that Trump wasn't going to read it. So they would like give it to people who, if they talked to Trump about national security stuff, he'd pay attention to, because he basically couldn't be relied on to read basically anything. Well, like I remember correctly, was Barack Obama was like a real reader, and so like Barack Obama preferred longer briefings, and he'd actually take like a few hours out of his day to read them. So that's a thing. But and I do, and the other one I remember too is that that they had to have a lot of pictures in Ronald Reagan's, especially near the end when he started getting Alzheimer's. And like he had to have stuff like the nuclear stockpile had to be described to him as a chart with all of the missiles and all of their relative sizes. And Reagan would say stuff like, "We need more. I want more of the bigger ones and less of the smaller ones because they're bigger." And it's like that's the kind of like it was Reagan making actual decisions about the nuclear stockpile. Obama was a college professor. Yeah, he definitely read a lot. Also explains why it took him fucking forever to get his memoirs out. To the point where we're now in 2020 and we're getting part 1 of his memoirs. Oh boy. Is it better to have UBI or minimum wage laws? I think minimum wage laws. Yeah, but it'd have to be paired with a job guarantee or something like that. A job guarantee is a much better thing than UBI. I'd probably actually in this situation I'd probably say UBI was better than a minimum wage with no job guarantee. But I think that a job guarantee at our point in time, just because labor needs to have the ability to withhold labor, as a way to exert political power, because voting obviously doesn't do anything, and protesting doesn't seem to do anything anymore. So really, the ability to strike is the only form of political power that people who aren't billionaires can exercise. And so, I would much prefer a jobs guarantee over basic income at this point. Who was more conservative, Ford or Eisenhower? Probably Ford. Eisenhower was actually pretty, like when it came to like when it comes to like domestic stuff. Eisenhower was like, yeah, he was very pro business, but he was essentially represented the Republicans, like becoming okay with the New Deal and being okay with organized labor and stuff like that. While Ford was more like a, ideologically opposed to organized labor and stuff like that. Like the Republican Party, at the point Eisenhower was elected, there were movements to get both. There were movements to draft Eisenhower into both the Democratic and Republican Party. Like he was, like he could have written that line. While I don't know if Ford would have fit in the Democratic Party. What do you think of Second Thoughts CIA video? I haven't seen it yet. I talked to him briefly about his encounter with DHS, though. It was fun. I just put Dennis Miller's Dave Rubin interview in the reactor. Oh, fun. Both of those people are just wonderful human beings. I'll be kind of sad because I haven't really seen much of Dennis Miller since I stopped being into him when he started getting into the Iraq War, and I imagine that he's become the thing is, in right-wing grift comedy, you don't actually have to be funny or tell any jokes. So I imagine that he's descended quite a bit when he used to be quite highbrow in the 90s. Probably why Eisenhower is branded by the John Birch side. He's a secret communist. Yeah, he was definitely on the more the thing about Eisenhower is that the Republican Party of the late 40s and early 50s was kind of torn between more business focused liberal Republicans who lived in northern states and more conservative, more reactionary isolationists. The big issue that divided the Republican Party of the mid-century was isolationism versus internationalism. A lot of Republicans after the war didn't want to get involved with NATO. They didn't want to have all these military bases. They wanted to sort of shut down a lot of America's commitments abroad. And Eisenhower was the opposite of all of that. And so he really got in trouble with the conservative side of the Republican Party pretty often, to the point where there was an attempt to make a constitutional amendment that would limit the president's ability to enter the United States into treaties, and he had to actually work against the Republicans with the Democrats, working with Senate Minority Leader Lyndon B. Johnson in order to defeat the amendment. Was Adams for peace Eisenhower? I actually don't know. Have you seen Cody's Ross Perot video? I have not. Alrighty. After World War II... Oh, Eisenhower predicted the rise of the military-industrial complex. He was very much against the massive buildup of the military. He thought it dangerous for our well-being and not a good use of our wealth. Yeah, Eisenhower's whole thing was that he thought that Truman built up the military too much. But he also was very much a Cold Warrior. So his whole thought process is that he could scale back the U.S. military by doubling down on building nuclear bombs. So his whole thing was if America has a huge nuclear stockpile and just threatened to nuke anybody who caused mischief, then the U.S. wouldn't have to have as big a military. And yeah, that definitely concerned him through his presidency. And then in his farewell address, he warned about the military-industrial complex and et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, that was a '50s Republican president. Cody compares Perot to Bernie. That's also the reactor. Oh yeah, I did see that. Do you think GPT-3 is an AI god? Oh man, I have a Google alert for GPT-3. It's very interesting stuff. I don't think it's God, but damn, it is very, very, very powerful. GPT-3 is a machine learning tool that creates text, and it's very powerful compared to the previous generation GPT-2. To the point where it can write code. They're training it to play role-playing games. It's like one of the better it's the best, I think, text generation bot out there, and people are finding all sorts of like interesting new applications for it. What do you think Eisenhower would think of the Obama? I think Eisenhower would be a very big fan of Obama's policy of drone warfare because he was very much an internationalist. He very much believed that America should be like Thatcher's pro-lab stars. Oh God. He very much believed in like American exceptionalism and leadership over the world. He just wanted to reduce. He just wanted to reduce the U.S.'s size of its military because he thought it was costing the taxpayers too much money, basically. So I think the drone program would have been very big for him. What do you make of that monolith that's in the news? Do you think it's an elaborate hoax or something? It's probably an elaborate hoax, but it does kind of remind me of the opening scenes of An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, the science fiction novel, which started with a bunch of robots just showing up that looked like statues. It's cool though. Have I played AI Dungeon? Yeah, I have it on my phone. GPT-3 learned how to do math. Did it? I don't. I've played AI Dungeon a little bit. It's still a little bit messy, but I didn't see any numbers. So after World War II, the U.S. provided the most Western European countries that aid for rebuilding with the Marshall Plan. Not to be outdone, the USSR also began providing aid to Eastern European countries in the form of Comecon. Hypothetically speaking, if a Western European country had declined the Marshall Plan and you asked the USSR for aid, what do you think? Do you think they would have given it? Yeah. They would probably have tried to. If they were going to try to get them more politically in their sphere, they totally would have done it. I would say that if a country did try that, I imagine whoever ran that country would be mysteriously shot by a CIA agent. They would commit suicide by being shot in the back 6 times, and all of a sudden a very pro-America dictator would take over and would stop that right away. Watch Computer Files video on GPT-3? All right. I'm actually going to write that down because I kind of do want to watch. I'm kind of fascinated with GPT-3, so... Alrighty, I have to take a quick washroom break, but then I will be back and we will wrap up. We'll do the last 20 minutes or so of the stream. Or 25, 26 minutes. Anyways, be right back. All right, everybody, I am back. Hopefully, not too many of you took off. Hey, almost pushed the end stream button. That would have been bad. Um, does CPUSA still do anything these days? Actually, I don't know what they've been up to. The Canadian Communist Party is still kind of active. Yeah, they are a little bit. I don't know if they've been relevant in a very, very long time or ever. It's a good TV show called Next, where the FBI Cyber Task Force is tracking an emergent hostile AI which uses terrifying tactics to prevent it from being destroyed. Oh my. That could either be great or great but awful. Okay. Yeah. Suppose you're a medical professional and a COVID denier. Should you be fired from the hospital you work in? Yeah, because you're what's it called? You're gonna be you're basically being incompetent, and you would be causing, like, if you're a COVID denier but you still do your job and as if COVID exists, then I don't give a shit. But if you are like giving medical advice to people that is actively influenced by you being a COVID denier, then yeah, get the fuck out of there. We don't have time for that shit. The U.S. hasn't had a president without a college degree since the 1940s. How do you feel about electing someone with just a high school degree? That's fine. I don't know. I don't understand. What is it about university that makes somebody good at being president? Honestly, nobody should be president is the answer. But like, I don't see what the actual like big deal is. Best Fleetwood Mac song? Go Your Own Way, I think, is the one I would say. Or what? What's the one that the guy drinks the cranberry to? There was that meme recently where the guy drinks the cranberry juice on his guitar, or on his what's it called, his longboard. I thought you wanted everyone to go to college. Yeah, that'd be nice. But I don't think going to college makes you, like, magically better able to be president. This funny thing about the I gotta find the name of the guy. Because his username is like really silly. Yeah, so there's this guy who made a viral TikTok where he's drinking cranberry juice while he's on a longboard, and his username is 420 dogface208. But what it is what happened though is that it went so viral, and the guy is like one of the few, like, you know, examples of like a he's like a Native American guy and like working class, and so it led to like people like very important people meeting with him and stuff like that, and it's just like really funny to think of, like, oh yeah, like we met with like the fact that Jagmeet Singh did a video that was an homage to 420 Dogface 208. Happy times, happy times. I love that the internet creates that kind of weird shit. What are your thoughts on Teddy Roosevelt? The guy was a racist and an imperialist. So there's that. He loved war. He was the trust buster, yeah. But man, he was like, what's it called? He hated anarchists. He wanted to kill all the anarchists, and he loved the idea of America going to war. He wanted America to expand its empire. Like, yeah, no thanks. Yeah, Jagmeet did that. Jagmeet's got a TikTok, and he does a lot of fun stuff on there. All right, what we got? Suppose Vietnam never really got bad and LBJ got a third term. He wouldn't have been able to. The constitutional amendment that banned people running for a third term happened in 1952. So he wouldn't have been able to do that. Do you think the AOC would make an NDP-like party in America? It would be great if she could. I feel like she's still a bit like new to politics to do something like make a new political party. How do you think he would have handled the early 1970s? Do you think the neoliberal turn would have happened at some point regardless? I mean, okay, so LBJ didn't exactly get, like, he would have kind of gotten like a fake third term in the fact that he became president. Like, he was only president for 4 years. He was president from 1964 when fucking Kennedy got shot, and he resigned in he came out of office in 1968. 10 years is the maximum term for a president. In the case of a president's death, it's 10 years maximum. Yes, but it's 10, it's like, you know, it's 2 terms. (1963) was oh yeah. Yeah, so I guess that is the case, but I don't know how he would have handled the 70s stuff. I mean, the Great Society would have done very well. I imagine that he would have probably grown his like welfare programs and stuff like that to get through the tough times. America would have gotten into a lot of debt, but it would have pulled through. And I don't know how, depending upon how successful those programs were, I imagine he might have actually been able to provide some sort of a counterbalance against the sort of like neoliberal turn that was happening by 1972. But yeah. AOC 2024, that's not a bad idea. She'd be very young, but I don't have that much of a problem. What if you have gotten Medicare for all? I mean, it's not an impossibility, but that's a huge legislative achievement. It would really have depended if he won in 1968. It would have depended upon how big his win was, and what Congress looked like. Because getting I'm sure that would have been a thing that he would have liked to have done, but getting Medicare for all through like a Congress that was not friendly to it would have been. I mean, he was really good at that kind of stuff, but I don't know if he would have like. It would have been tough. Isn't AOC legally too young to run? In 2024, she will be, by the time that she would take office in January of 2025, she would be of the legal age to run for president. So she would be campaigning too young, but by the time that she would have been inaugurated, she would be the minimum age you can be to be president. Why do you think people are comparing Biden to LBJ? Don't really know. Like the thing, Biden is going like Biden. I don't know if like I'm trying to think of a president that Biden's going to be more like. I'm trying to remember what this president's name is, but. So, let me just get this here. Yeah, I see Biden more like a James Buchanan type figure, where like the country is crumbling and falling apart, but he tries to like thread a middle ground between like slavery and not slavery. Like I have a feeling that Biden is going to be an ineffectual person trying to create a balance between an unbalanceable situation, and that it's going to be an absolute disaster. Because he's going to try to find a middle ground between a Republican Party that's quickly turning into a neo-fascist party, or at this point has pretty much hollowed out all the non-neo-fascists, and a Democratic Party that is tearing itself apart between liberal versus slightly social democratic ideas. And I don't think he's going to be able to get do much. She's going to run, and the libs are going to say she's too young and inexperienced, and we're going to say, what about Mayor Pete? And then they're going to ignore us. Yeah, that's most definitely going to happen. Because, like, the thing is, this is why I think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez could do some really great shit for running for president, because not only is she like got good politics, and even like she has decent political instincts for someone who's only been an elected official since 2018, but also like nothing in their playbook of like you're secretly a sex racist if you don't vote for the person who wants all of the people of color and women to starve to death or die from no health care. Like, they can't do that. Beat them at their own game. But also, she's like a legit like she's got the legit political chops, and also is sort of blazing a new field for like millennial like how the millennial generation is going to be public officials. And I feel like with her like having like Instagram stories and like all this kind of stuff, like no, like if she were the presidential candidate, I feel like there are a lot of people, like the Republicans would have a really hard time trying to campaign around her. She's too innovative. She understands the internet in a way that like a lot of politicians don't. Think about how many politicians these days still probably have to have their emails printed out so that they can read them. Yeah. Do you think Harris will run on America for all in 2024? No. AOC is awful. She voted for sanctions of it. Okay, and saying dark is I bet I can guarantee that you did not follow politics before Bernie Sanders. Because man, those are some like yeah, she had some shitty votes when she was first starting out in politics. Wow. Cool beans. Yeah, it's not great. Definitely she'll probably have to live that one down. But like, what's it called? The standard of the Bernie was too good for us, and the standard of politician that we have is too high. You gotta go for what you can get, man. And AOC is basically the best shot America has at this point. Now that America burned its once in a lifetime candidate, so yeah. Someone say that, yeah, Larry Wilkerson compares this moment to 1856. That's not incorrect. It's not a bad take, honestly. We need to go back in time and kidnap baby AOC and take her back to like 1977 so she can be experienced enough to run for president now. Yeah, but then she'd be a fucking Gen Xer. And man, I don't think she'd be nearly as cool. Do you think the U.S. will balkanize in the near future? And if so, what will be the effects of that around the world? I don't think it'll balkanize. I don't imagine. The U.S. has way too large of, like, I don't know. The inertial power keeping America together is pretty damn strong. I have a feeling that that it'll be different. That balkanization, we're still pretty far from that as an issue. See where it goes, but will she say she's running for Medicare for all in 2024? My guess is no. She knows that what's it called? She knows that she spent 4 years attacking healthcare being vice president, and so yeah, I don't think she's if in 2024 she's the presidential candidate, she's not going to run on Medicare for all, because that would be like attacking the Joe Biden legacy. It's the average life expectancy of a fascist regime. It's not long. I think the longest one was probably Franco, which was like, what, 40 years? Do you think AOC can withstand the machine, the Washington machine? She mentioned she didn't even want to run for re-election. Yeah, she's running into a lot of frustration with the establishment of the Democratic Party. That's true. But the thing is that she's an entirely crowd-funded candidate, so she doesn't have to spend 8 hours a day on the phone raising money and shit, which is pretty good. Um, Franco, Pinochet, Suarto. I know that AOC's going through a rough time, but I hope that the new squad will hopefully, like, get some more energy back in the system, and we can have some real conversations. I don't know if the future of these people is in the Democratic Party, but I also don't know how you change that up at this point. Something like Tom Cotton wins in 2024. Would that be the end of American democracy? I mean, that's assuming that democracy exists now for the most part. The fact that the Democrats have to win by like a landslide in order to win elections is just a sign that like America's not really a democracy. Twice you said you don't want to comment on problematic stuff other lefty creators have said and done because you don't want to avoid drama. To what extent is that because you don't want to spoil your relationships with people you might want to collaborate in the future with by criticizing them? It's just like, I don't want to like what's it called? There's a whole term of like I don't know if it's about collaboration, but there's people get reputations in different areas. I imagine that this is similar in people who work in the same industries. You have to be like, you have to have some sort of business sense to know that like some fights are not worth having. Like if someone did something super super bad, then yeah, like I'm not gonna like protect people who are doing horrible shit. But starting drama over like problematic tweets and stuff like that, like it's not worth like burning a potential bridge over. Because you have no idea what like relationships and connections are going to lead to cool stuff in the future. Oh man. Jamal Bowman's gonna be pretty cool, yeah. There's an episode of Peep Show where what would now call an alt-right racist assumes that Mark likes capitalism, law and order, military history, and dislike counterculture probably makes him an ally. Do you think that liberals who wrote Peep Show actually understand why a chud would think about someone like Mark? Okay. I mean, I imagine that is just assumed because he's a white person. I don't really know the answer. Corey Bush is also pretty cool. And hey, there's a Betty in the chat. Hello, Betty. Can the UK elected far-left leaders, but the US elected someone like Tom Cotton? Oh boy, that would be some spicy international politics. What happens? I mean, I have a feeling that Canada and the UK neither of them are in positions where they can get into like an actual, like Canada, even if it had the most left-wing prime minister, could not possibly afford, like, say, trade sanctions from the United States. And so the amount that they would fight over things is constrained. The UK is about to become a fucking developing country right now, so we'll see what happens. But like, I imagine that they would not be in a position where they could stand up and do a whole lot either. You know how ant or bee colonies can collectively act in a way that seems intelligent, although they all have individual insects are not intelligent at all? Do you think that you could have a technologically advanced species made up entirely by drones with no individual sapience? I mean, yes, because that's what we are. If you think of cells as members of a colony, that is essentially what you and I are. So just replace cells with, like, you know, a little animal, and you basically have that. Is that a cat in the background? Yes. I can't get the camera over there, but that's Romeo. He's passed out. Alrighty. I would like to repeat the demand for more cat. He's on the other side of the room. He's too far away. Like he's like 7 feet away from me. Phoebe's actually closer, and she's just over there. As you can see, there is a Phoebe next to the Gorilla Glue and the internet router. And a bunch of Amazon boxes. Grab the cat. Oh, but he's sleeping. He's sleeping so restfully. Just a bunch of giant Portuguese man-o-wars. Yeah. I forgot about the man-o-war. That's basically what it is, right? The cats have encircled you, yeah. They both hang out in here most of the day. You don't have enough time to answer another question, but there you go. We did a good... We're almost at 9 o'clock, so I'm going to go and find someone to raid, but this has been a real ball. We've talked about a lot of stuff. Yeah. How many countries' politics do you regularly follow? US, UK, France, and Germany? I mostly just follow Canada and the U.S. and other things. It's like secondary, and even Canada, I'm not like the best at following. Okay, here we go. Who we gonna raid? Let's raid Chelsea Manning again. That's fun. Everyone loves a good Chelsea Manning stream, right? Alrighty. I'll be back on Friday, though. Everybody, take care of yourselves and each other. And learn to love and enjoy. I'm in a snowstorm right now, so I ain't going anywhere. But everyone, have a good night. And rest up. We need you on the battlefield.